The first steel post hit the soil with a crack that sent birds exploding out of the pines. Morning light spilled through the thick canopy, turning the lake silver as my crew lowered a 6-foot cedar panel right into the middle of Karen's prize rose garden. Petals burst like red confetti. Then, she stormed out a walking highlighter in a neon pink silk robe, glittery slippers sinking into the dew-wet grass hair, sprayed into a chaotic platinum crown that shimmered under the trees. She climbed the chain line, screaming threats at the sheriff, HOA, governor, anyone who'd listen. I took a sip of coffee, watching roses crumble. Because Karen had no idea this fence was only the beginning, Karen made her first move the same way she did everything: loud, glittering, and absolutely unhinged. 2 hours after the fence meltdown, she strutted down my shady shoreline trail in a blinding turquoise power suit heels, sinking into moss. Waving a stack of official papers that sparkled with gold foil stickers, she'd clearly added herself. Sunlight filtered through the tall birch trees, catching the rhinestones on her collar like disco lights. This, she declared, slapping the papers against my dock rail, is a community recreational easement, meaning my lake access cannot be interrupted by whatever this construction nonsense is. Her voice echoed across the calm water, scattering ducks. I glanced at the document, perfect formatting, wrong township logo signature, from someone who died in 1998. Classic Karen. I'd already spent 15 years saving for this shoreline, scraping by after my back gave out, and Cheryl needed water therapy, so I wasn't about to let a woman dressed like a tropical parrot steal it with counterfeit stationery. Before I could speak, tires crunched through the forested path. Sheriff Morrison stepped out of his cruiser sunglasses, glinting under the canopy, looking like he already knew whose side he was supposed to take. Karen turned to him dramatically, laying one jeweled hand on her forehead. "She threatened my access again, Sheriff. I'm honestly frightened." Morrison shot me a look that said, "Trouble." Karen's show was just getting started. The harassment began before Morrison's cruiser even cleared the tree line. By the next morning, bright neon notices, lime green, hot pink, glitter-bordered, were taped to my mailbox, my dock post, even the maple tree shading Cheryl's therapy bench. Each one screamed a new violation. Unapproved waterfront repairs, illegal fire pit, mailbox height non-compliance, all written in looping cursive with hearts over the eyes because of course they were. I spotted Karen across the property line, strutting through her emerald lawn in a sunshine yellow windbreaker and sequin sunglasses, pretending to photograph evidence while birds chirped around her like they were mocking the whole performance. Thanks to my bad back, I worked from home most days, meaning I saw hours of this circus from my porch. Cheryl tried to keep calm, stress flares her joints, but the constant parade of glittery clipboard inspections made her grip my arm tighter every time Karen's shrill voice carried through the pine trees. Karen didn't want peace. She wanted a stage. 2 days later, she brought backup. I heard voices on the trail, high heels crunching leaves, clipboards snapping open before a man in khakis emerged behind Karen. She wore a lime green blazer with neon feathers on the shoulders, looking like a bird of paradise gone rogue as she led the environmental inspector straight onto my shoreline. No permission, no announcement. "You'll notice the unauthorized shoreline modifications," she said, gesturing dramatically at a stone fire ring older than my marriage. Sunbeams filtered through tall birches as she pointed out damage she'd literally staged: fresh trash, perched in the ferns, a broken beer bottle placed like a prop. The inspector tried to look serious, crouching near the water, where dragonflies skimmed the surface. "This trash is concerning," he murmured. Because I'd spent 30 years diagnosing engine failures, I spotted the setup instantly. Wrong angle footprints, trash too, clean items placed exactly where Karen wanted him to look. Cheryl called from the porch, voice strained from pain. "Dale, what's happening?" I didn't answer. I was already walking past the inspector, up the forest path, straight toward the courthouse. If Karen wanted a war, she'd get one. 3 days of courthouse digging turned into pure gold. When I returned home, dusk glowed orange through the tall spruce rows, and everything Karen had been hiding snapped into place. Her dock, 15 feet into public waterway. Her underwater lights illegal in spawning zones. Her boat lift 0 permits fully prohibited. But the crown jewel came from one survey line buried in the archives. My land extended 25 feet farther east than anyone realized, which meant her outdoor kitchen on my land, half her pool deck on my land, her award-winning rose garden, yep, my land too. The next morning, when the DNR inspector, a real one, this time, walked through the greenery with his tablet, Karen followed him wearing a shimmering silver jumpsuit like she was auditioning for a disco revival. She tried charm, tears, fake outrage, but none of it stopped the writing of violations. "Ma'am," the inspector said, tapping his screen beneath the shade of a towering oak, "these structures must be removed within 30 days or face daily fines." Her smile cracked like thin glass. Meanwhile, Cheryl stood at the shoreline, gently lowering herself into the cool water for therapy. Seeing her wince, just stepping in that pain, hit harder than anything Karen had done. This wasn't just about property anymore. It was about protecting Cheryl's only path to mobility. Karen escalated with the subtlety of a fireworks show. One morning, 2 patrol cars rolled down our leafy driveway, pine needles crunching under tires. Morrison stepped out, adjusting his sunglasses as chickadees chattered overhead. "We received a report you threatened Mrs. Whitmore," he said. "Of course." Karen appeared seconds later, in a glitter-studded lavender dress, clutching her pearls like she was auditioning for a soap opera. He yelled at me, "Sheriff, I feared for my life." Cheryl tried to speak up, but her voice cracked from fatigue. Morrison barely glanced at her. I kept calm. "Sheriff, check my record. Clean VA evals. No incidents. Ever." He shifted awkwardly. He knew it was true, but protocol forced him to inspect my garage, my truck, even my shed. While he searched a convoy of unmarked federal vehicles, drove past the pines toward the township building, where Bradley's corruption investigation was already heating up. The forest around us felt charged like a storm was rolling in. Karen wasn't losing control, she was doubling down. The breaking point came at 2:58 a.m. Motion alerts chimed and footage lit up my phone. Karen, in a hot pink Lululemon tracksuit hair, in a chaotic bun, creeping along my shoreline with 2 unmarked chemical jugs. Moonlight shimmered through the branches as she dumped the contents straight into the lake. By sunrise, fish floated belly up near Cheryl's Therapy Cove. Karen tried to blame algae bloom on social media, even posting selfies beside her manicured hydrangeas like she was an environmental warrior. But she had no clue she'd been recorded from 3 angles. Later that night, 2 hired vandals stomped through my pine trail, smashing solar lights and scrawling threats across my dock. Their rusted truck peeled away, exhaust blending with the scent of cedar. But the worst hit came the next morning. A county health officer knocked on my door, paperwork in hand. Karen had filed an emergency psychiatric petition, claiming I was a danger to the community, forging medical documents claiming PTSD episodes I never had. The officer read the form, frowned. "This doesn't match your military files at all." The lake breeze rustled the tall grass. Sunlight sparkled through the trees, but the air felt tight, like everything was about to snap. This wasn't neighbor drama anymore. This was Karen's final swing, and the FBI was already watching. Saturday night dropped over Willow Lake like velvet soft breeze, fireflies drifting through tall birch branches, the lake reflecting every star. Perfect weather for a celebration or an arrest. Across the tree line, Karen's Save Our Lake Gala blared with string lights wrapped around maple trunks, a live saxophone echoing across the water. Guests in tuxedos and sparkling gowns sipped champagne under a forest canopy she pretended to protect. Then the unmarked federal SUVs rolled in, doors slammed. Agents in dark windbreakers walked through the glowing pines toward her mansion. Bradley was the first in cuffs, his tuxedo glittering under floodlights, his face ghost pale. Gasps rippled through the party. Karen grabbed the band's microphone before anyone could think. She stood at the top of her outdoor staircase, silver gown, shimmering like a disco ball, under the trees, hair styled into a dramatic swoop that looked one gust away from collapse. "This," she cried, voice trembling but loud as a political attack on community leaders. "We have been targeted by extremists who want to ruin our lake." Her guests stared, half confused, half horrified, as agents moved deeper into her property. Across the shoreline, our community festival kept glowing warm and bright. But all eyes were drifting toward the mansion. I stepped out of the forest. The path between our properties wound through tall spruce and glowing lanterns, and as I walked, even the wind felt like it held its breath. Families from our stewardship event paused watching me cross the lawn toward Karen's gala. She spotted me, her glittered face twisted. "You," she screeched, loud enough to scatter birds from the branches. I lifted the folder. "Karen, your crimes aren't political. They're documented." I stepped beside the stone fountain where her guests could see everything clearly in the soft canopy light. I held up photos of her dumping industrial algicide into the lake, bank logs of Bradley's bribery scheme, email printouts ordering permit manipulation, GPS data marking each illegal dock extension, water test reports revealing toxins in Cheryl's Therapy Cove. Gasps cracked through the crowd like snapping branches. One woman covered her mouth. A man stepped back like Karen was radioactive. The The saxophonist quietly lowered his instrument. Karen lunged forward, shaking her head so wildly her jeweled earrings flashed under the birch lights. Lies, fabrication. You broke into my home, you manipulated everything. Agent Martinez stepped beside me, badge catching starlight. Ma'am, this evidence was obtained legally. The forest went dead quiet. Then Karen snapped. Karen launched herself off the staircase with the intensity of a fired cannon. Her silver gown tore at the thigh as she sprinted through the manicured grass, forest lights glinting off her rhinestone heels. She grabbed the mic stand like a spear and charged mascara streaking down her cheeks in dramatic black rivers. "You ruined everything!" she shrieked, swinging wildly at me. Her heel slipped on the wet grass. She stumbled, knocking over a $4,000 ice sculpture, crashing into a tower of champagne flutes. Glass shattered in a glittering spray across the lawn. Agents tackled her gently but firmly beneath the canopy of trees. Even pinned, she flailed, kicking, screaming, hair exploding into a chaotic halo. "I own this lake. I built this community. You can't do this to me." Her voice echoed across the dark water, rippling through the trees, carried by wind and disbelief. Guests pulled out phones. Cameras rolled. Every inch of her meltdown caught in crystal clarity, framed by softly swaying birches and glowing lake reflections. Agent Martinez read her charges calmly. Environmental terrorism, bribery, fraud, false reports, conspiracy. Karen froze mid-scream, her face folding from rage into a stunned, hollow collapse. For the first time all year, she went quiet. As they lifted her into the waiting cruiser, fireflies drifted through the air, around her soft, peaceful, almost mocking in their gentleness. The lake exhaled, the pines rustled. Karen's reign ended right there on her own glowing lawn. The moment Karen's cruiser disappeared, up the winding forest road, a strange silence settled over Willow Lake, like the trees themselves were finally unclenching. Soft lantern light flickered through the birches, casting warm gold across the water, and the two events, her shattered gala and our lakeside festival, seemed to merge into one breathing, grateful crowd. People drifted from the mansion lawn toward our shoreline tuxedos, brushing against pine branches, gowns catching the glow of fireflies. No one followed Karen. No one asked where she was going. They just moved almost instinctively toward the laughter music, an open air by the water. Children kept fishing beneath the tall spruce trees. Cheryl floated gently in the shallows, supported by neighbors who'd come to help her with therapy earlier in the day. When she saw me approach, her smile lit by moonlight, dancing off the ripples, carried more peace than I'd seen on her face in months. "You did it," she whispered, as I knelt at the shoreline where cattails swayed in the soft night breeze. "No," I said, "we did." Behind us, the festival volunteers began tidying lanterns strung between oak branches. No one rushed. The mood was calm, almost reverent. It felt like the entire lake was resetting itself. County officials arrived next, not with sirens, but with clipboards, tucked respectfully at their sides. One of them, Miss Anders, approached me under the arching branches of a willow tree, whose long green strands shimmered over the water. "We'll coordinate immediate restoration," she said softly. "The toxin she dumped will be removed by morning. And the zoning board has been dissolved pending investigation. Every permit she touched will be reviewed." A few neighbors gathered nearby, people who had once been too intimidated to approach. Now, underneath the shelter of maple leaves glowing amber under lantern light, they stepped forward with quiet apologies, gratitude, and relief that someone had finally stood up to Karen. The community wasn't fractured. It had been waiting. Federal agents joined us next, their dark jackets almost disappearing against the dense tree line. Agent Martinez handed me a packet, simple, unceremonious, but the weight of it hit like a wave. "Mr. Dale, restitution from the civil case has been approved," she said. "Property restoration, financial damages, and a permanent protection order ensuring the Whitmores have no authority in municipal affairs again." Cheryl exhaled shakily, her fingers tracing the water's surface, scattering moonlit reflections across her palms. Then Martinez knelt beside her, voice lowering. "And no one will ever interfere with your treatment access again. The lake is yours, legally, permanently." The leaves overhead rustled gently, almost on cue, as if the forest agreed. By the time the agents left, the festival had transformed into something quieter. Neighbors gathering around soft fire pits beneath the towering pines, conversations drifting into the warm night air. The lake, free of lights, pollution, and Karen's footprint shimmered naturally, silver and calm. I walked Cheryl up the grassy bank toward the small platform we'd built for therapy sessions. The path wound between ferns under arching branches of birch and cedar, each one dancing slightly in the cool breeze. She settled onto the wooden edge legs, brushing the water. "This place feels different," she said. "It finally gets to breathe," I replied. "And so do we." As the crowd thinned, Miss Anders returned one last time, handing me a simple document with a county seal embossed at the top. "Effective tonight," she said. "This shoreline, your shoreline, is officially designated a protected community access zone under your stewardship. Environmental rebuilding begins at dawn." The words didn't fully hit until Cheryl leaned her head against my shoulder. The lake wasn't just safe, it was ours to heal. In the glow of the lanterns, her breathing steadied, slow, unhindered by pain for the first time since the harassment began. She watched kids chase fireflies through the knee-high grass, watched veterans help collect fishing poles, watched neighbors pick up trash, Karen's vandals left behind. Everyone was restoring what she had tried to ruin, together. When the final lanterns were gathered and the soft hum of conversation faded into the rustle of nighttime trees, I carried our cooler to the dock. The wood felt solid beneath my feet again, not a battleground, but a place of peace. Cheryl joined me hand in mine, moving carefully, but with more confidence than I'd seen in months. The moon drew a silver path across the flat water, framed by tall silhouettes of spruce and maple. "Do you think she'll come back?" Cheryl asked. "She won't be allowed near us," I said. "Not legally. Not ever." She nodded, watching the reflections shimmer. "Good. Then we can finally build what we were trying to build all along." And right there, with the scent of pine drifting across the lake, the cool breeze carrying laughter from the last lingering neighbors, and the water glowing under the moon, peace settled in like a long-delayed guest, finally arriving at our door. Not revenge, not victory, just the quiet healing truth. The lake was alive again, and so were we.